Sure.
You have beautiful scenery.
Yeah.
Show. The nature is amazing.
Yeah.
How much does that influence the special effects when you know?
We like he'll speak to it more, but like we really do try to take what's real and then just add to it. All of our focus on all the visual effects, we take that same type of idea. So like augment reality or add to it, but not replace if possible. So we do have some scenery that is CGI, but it's still based in a practical environment. And that's some of the work that's actually probably the most rewarding, because if you can make it look real in a photoreal environment, then we did our job pretty well. So we work with like the set design. If there's things that have to be added because physically you couldn't do it and things like that. Yeah. But we try to, like, he'll talk about that, where we try to base everything in some sort of reality.
Yeah, I'll go real quick. So last season, fewer battles, also dealing with COVID interruption. This season, lots more battles. I'm curious about how much of those battle sequences are visual effects versus practical, and how did not having that interruption perhaps the process?
I wasn't there for season one,
okay.
Just to be clear, but a lot of the battle scenes are practical. Yeah, the stunts did a great job. The stunts and special effects teams did an amazing job. I mean, there's some parts of those battles.
Yeah, like sort of the powers and the
powers.
Yeah.
That's obviously us. But with the majority of the battle scenes is actually mostly practical.
Can you go in a little bit into the power? Because I think very carefully when I
think you really want. I think you're going to want him.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's actually his baby. He's the guy he came up with how to do it. So I think that's probably most appropriate for him. And I think you'll enjoy what he has to say. Me, I can talk about the efficiencies, the team dynamics now. Excel sheets, I got you.
Oh, I love Excel.
Sorry.
Go ahead, by all means.
No, just in your opinion, maybe what was the most challenging part of your job, as you see it, for the season?
We have, for my part of it, we have teams in multiple countries at the same time. So, we have people in Prague who are shooting. We have people in London who are in post. We're posting as we go along as well. And sometimes we were in multiple scouts in multiple countries, whether it was Morocco in last season, in Prague. We had people in London, and me out of LA sometimes. So being in multiple locations and having that communication to make sure that the whole machine runs is my part. But yeah, it can be difficult at times, but we have a great team, so it works pretty flawlessly. You get the right people in lots of places, the right people make it work.
How does that affect deadlining? Because you're obviously working in multiple times.
Sometimes it's a real benefit, right? Because you can, when you have visual effects vendors or all across the world, you can be in multiple time zones on the same day. So you can be working 24 hours a day around the clock, around the globe. And you can be more productive in a given day, having multiple places around at the same time. So it works out for us.
I hear that it's a help, not a hindrance.
Yeah, it's definitely a help, not a hindrance. But we've been doing that in our visual effects part for a long time. Lots of companies are global.
Now you worked on the Orville. Does this experience compare to working on that? How's it different? Can you contrast?
Orville was a lot of fun to work on. I came into that like in a problem-solving kind of scenario. It had a large volume of shots as well. This is more complicated. The channeling system is by far more complicated. With Orville, we had some creature, but we also had space, right? We're putting space in, and once you create what space is supposed to look like, you can reuse space over and over and over again. For this show, it's the channeling system is very complicated. Doing effects simulations is a very detailed and very expensive thing to do for rendering power and time and cost and labor. So the time it takes to do this is by far greater than the time it took to do that. So it's a much simpler process.
Okay.
this is by far more complicated and it takes a lot of time.
Has there been anything that's really been like gratifying, professionally to bring to life, to help to make, get on the screen?
For the show?
Yes.
If we're talking about episodes, I think that's what I'll say later too. I think 208 was a lot of fun, but all of them are a lot of fun because a lot of the environments are very challenging to be in. Even if it's not a very remote location, but like even outside the city of Prague, and you're in a forest, and all of a sudden it's raining and windy. Like the dynamic of how we actually go about shooting that in different places. That part's pretty challenging. But it's a lot of fun. I think the whole thing is fun for me. Like, I've been in this industry a long time, so I enjoy all parts of the process, really.
Thank you.
You said you joined in season 2. You were in
Yeah, I joined in season 2. Yeah.
How does it feel to join a team that was already working together and try to bring your own flair to something that was already being done? Like, you have to maintain what was done in season 1, but also
Yeah, I think Andy will speak to that too, and more in depth. But it's a very welcoming team. So and I think that starts with Rafe all the way down. It's a very collaborative team. So I don't think there was any issue stepping in and helping out when we got to the ground. So from Rafe to the producers to the cast to all the department heads, it was very welcoming and easy to jump into. It's probably the best project I've ever worked on with in that type of environment. Like, it really is a good group of people, like quality group of people, which is not so common.
Work can be hard.
Well, not just that, but like industry-wise, right? Like when you have it from the top down, where it's just a really great environment, like you just want to keep doing it. So that's why we did season 2, and we're actually doing season 3 too.
Well, I was going to say, sorry, maybe not specifically to the show, but I know a lot of our viewers are always interested, like, how do you get into this industry? How do you get into your line of work? So specifically, like, what you do, what's the important thing, right? What would you recommend that people, like, the track that they follow to do what you do?
Start out at the bottom, right? Like, and find your way through the industry, right? So, I think Andy and me as well. We were both PAs in different parts of the world at different times, and then just learning about what part of the industry you really like. You just got to get your foot in and then find what you like to do. I think. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that really. Like, I started as a PA and I just worked my way through, and as each door opened, you take advantage of those situations.
Find where you fit in.
And find where you fit in, what you like to do, right? Because you really have to love what you do in this industry, otherwise you will burn out, right? Like, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and if you don't love it, then it's weird. But if you do love it, it's cool.
So season 3 renewal we knew about before. Have you started that? And 2, I mean, obviously you can be mindful of spoilers, but I'm really interested in sort of, because the world keeps expanding. With each book we go to a new place. Like, what are the challenges of, like, not being able to sort of exist in the same world, but having to constantly expand that out, especially with how big this and global this team is?
I think it's. I don't think there's any more challenges in expanding. It's that's story driven, and then we're used to dealing with being in multiple places at a time for visual effects.
So it doesn't feel any different for 3 than 2?
Not as far as like efficiency and like how we work and where we are in the world with technology and things like that. As of right now, it doesn't feel we're pretty efficient at what we do, and I think we'll just carry that same down. I don't think too much will change. I mean, we'll be in some remote locations, something like that will make things difficult to some degree, but we plan for that. Yeah.
Were you a fan of the books? Familiar with them? Did you have to do like an intensive deep dive into them?
You can be honest.
All 15 books.
Yeah,
I read all of them 19 times. No, I was not involved with the books prior. Andy has more knowledge on that from like the story perspective. My part when I got into it was fun to watch season 1 prior to starting, and then obviously we get into the scripts, and then we get into with the different professionals who really know the books, using them as resources, right? It's a great tool. But I wasn't involved prior.
Can you talk about how you specifically came on board? You know, given that you weren't on the previous season, how did you get the call? What was that like?
I had came off another project and became available. And they needed a person, so it's a small industry, right? A lot of people know a lot of people, and there's only so many degrees of separation. And one of the executive producers I was working with on a previous show also knows Rafe, their friend. Also got routed through the vendor side. I knew somebody who knew one of the producers who was looking. So a combination of multiple avenues ended up on this project.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
What's your favorite character? Who is your favorite character? And if you were an actor and you could play one of these characters, don't worry about gender. Who would you play? Who would you be?
I mean, Maria's badass. look at her like in 208. It was just a lot of fun. I never thought about that. I'm behind the scenes guy. I like being behind the camera.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I mean, do you specifically from your role, when you're looking, maybe like reviews come out, do you I'm not care what they thought of the episode, but what did they think of the visual shots or the VFX?
Yeah.
Like, what do you look for when you're getting
honestly feedback? I never actually looked at any feedback in like 27 years, just because typically it's like there's people who are going to love it and there's people who are not going to like it, but as long as you know that you put your best foot forward with the time and budget that you could possibly do and put out the best quality product, then to me that's all that really matters. But this time I heard so much about the fans, I was intrigued, so I did watch and read, and I watched some of the shows, and I did read some of the Twitterverse out there, and most of it was pretty good with respect to our part, so it's good.
That has to be difficult, hearing feedback from people who don't quite understand what your job is.
Some of the feedback is fun because I liked how the fans will go down these rabbit holes of this is what they meant by they zoom in and you see like the smallest thing and you're like, well, that had nothing to do with it, but I love the fact that you read into it that far, right? Like, amazing.
Yeah, that part is fun. I mean, I like that as a journalist.
And then they go through and then they take the blur off to see what was in the background of the thing. You're like, I saw those boots once before. And you're like, okay, you did.
Last question. Thank you.
Okay.
Again, being in your position, you hear stories about like, guys that like to hide Easter eggs or like, calls to certain things. Do you ever sneak any stuff in there that you fear?
He does.
Okay.
But he really does pay attention to the books, as much as we can. He definitely we definitely find things and we add things to it to, give people and fans something to look for. So yeah, he definitely does. I'm not sure he'll say exactly what he puts in, but he definitely.
We'll pry it out of it.
Yeah. By all means. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.